I'm being attacked by socks. I nearly dropped a sock in my tea. Oh my goodness. I hate starting podcasts. Starting podcasts is the worst thing because you feel like an idiot talking to yourself, which is basically what I'm doing right now. Hello everybody and welcome to Inside Number 23, my podcast about knitting, sewing and my crafty life in general. My name is Katie. You can find me on Instagram as misslavellia. You can find me on Ravelry as misslavellia, and this is episode number 5. Welcome everybody. It has been a bit of a whirlwind week. The podcast has kind of exploded this week. I can't tell you how overwhelmed I am genuinely about the amount of people who now appear to be watching from my subscribers. So welcome back if you have watched previously, and a huge welcome if you if this is your first episode. I've had an incredible response between last week's episode and this one in terms of people reaching out to me, giving me a heads up on their podcast, the amount of messages that I've received. It just, I'm speechless. It means so much that you would come and spend a little bit of your day with me, and I have loved every minute, absolutely every minute, so thank you. Obviously I'm thanking everybody who's watching. It's wonderful to have you here, but there are some specific thanks that I would like to give. Like I said, a couple of people have kind of given me a shout out this week. One of the first podcasts that I ever started watching was Yarngasm, hosted by Kristen, who also owns the Voolenvine Yarn company, which I have raved about previously, and Kristen actually gave me a shout out on her previous podcast. So hi Kristen, thank you so much, and I love the fact that my sewing has, in your own words, given you a kick up the butt to do a little bit yourself. I've loved seeing all of your recent projects. Also this week, another of my favourite podcasters, Molly from A Homespun House, gave me a little heads up on Instagram. So thank you so much, Molly. Again, if you've watched my previous episodes, you'll know how much I admire Molly and everything that she does. So having her as one of my viewers just means everything, so thank you. Another podcast that mentioned me this week was a new to me podcast, which is the Two Tangled Skeins podcast, which was hosted this week by Sue, Lynn and Selma. A lot of the weeks I believe it's just Sue and Lynn, and Selma comes every so often, but they did give me a shout out, a lovely one. So thank you ladies, and if you're watching, hello, I am now subscribed to you as well, and I can't wait for your next episode. To everybody who has sent me a message or commented on either my YouTube or my Instagram this week, thank you. I have read everything. If I haven't replied to you yet, I will. Thank you. Okay, so putting the thank yous aside, I think we have done quite a few of them, and I think that's enough for one week. Basically, the undertone of this episode is thank you. A couple of little admin bits and pieces before we get started. I now have a Ravelry group. Yay! With the help of my lovely husband, I now have a Ravelry group. So please come and join. As yet, there's not too much going on. I have an introduce you thread. I also have an ask me anything thread. So please do come and ask questions, and I will do my best to either answer them within that thread or on the podcast. And thank you to everyone who's already joined. It was lovely before I'd even announced on Instagram that there was a group, that I had like 30 people who had already found the group, so thank you again. Also, in terms of the podcast in general, a couple of things you may have noticed are changing this week. I've gone through some of my previous episodes, as they are now episodes. I have numbered them. I think think a couple of people were getting confused as to the order of which to watch everything, because previously I have split my videos into subjects. So I have my what's on my needles, and I have so what, and then I have additional little bits and pieces that I have posted. But what I wanted to do was to have something more sustainable that I could do from week to week. And in order to have a nice variety and a lot of things to talk about, I've decided to combine all of my previous topics. So like I said, what's on my needles and so what, and a couple of new things that I'm introducing this week. And I will be combining them all within one episode as opposed to dividing them up. I hope that makes sense. So from now onwards, my episodes will be numbered, but you shall be getting a variety of different subjects within each one. Also, a little update on 50 points for Gryffindor. Again, I'm really excited about how many of you seem to be interested in this topic. It's something that's very near and dear to my heart. I know Eric from the Sticks Plus Twine podcast. Hi, Eric! I know that he has shown a huge amount of interest and is hopefully going to be joining me, and a lot of other people have got in touch on various platforms saying that they would be interested. With 50 points for Gryffindor, rather than updating you every single week, what I have decided to do is have an update at the end of each month where I focus on 50 points for Gryffindor. I tell you what points I have earned, what points I have saved, and it will be its own little feature. So for people who aren't interested, it's not going to be a week by week update. Also, if you have no idea what I'm talking about in terms of 50 points for Gryffindor, I will be linking a previous video down below which has all of the information. It's a little fun point scheme that I have set myself for this year. So if you're interested, go and check out that video. I shall be adding a thread of 50 points for Gryffindor into my Ravelry group as well. Hopefully by the time I upload this video, that will be live on Ravelry. So if you have any questions, or you do want to take part, or you just want to have an idea of what they're not really rules, but the guidelines of 50 points for Gryffindor are, please check out that post. I'm just going to have a little sip of tea. This week I thought it would be fun, as I'm wearing my squirrel jumper, not made by me, purchased from Next, I believe, many years ago. If I used my little squirrel mug. I love squirrels. And today I am drinking, I believe it's pucker tea, and it is serene jasmine. So it's green tea with jasmine and chamomile and all yummy things like that. Also, a little heads up about my lighting. I am once again upstairs because the light here is considerably better than anywhere else in the house. But being in the UK, it is still overcast, it is still rainy, it is still dreary. I believe we are in the grips of a storm. I think it's Storm Imogen, which is a funny name for a storm, but it does mean that everything is a little bit gloomy and overcast. So the lighting is going to change a little bit as the sun goes in and out. Like I said, I have a window right here. Hopefully it will mean that you can see everything, but if there is a little bit of kind of changeable light going on, I do apologise for that. So without further ado, let's actually crack on with the fun stuff. So I'm starting off now with what's on my needles. So what's on my needles this week? I have a finished object. Yay, finished object. And it's a pretty special one because for the first time ever, I have a finished object that isn't for me. I have completed Emrys Socks. So here they are, and the second one here. Now these are the first pair of socks that I have ever made for Emrys, and to be honest, like the first knitting project that I have done for someone other than myself. I'm a selfish knitter. I like to knit for myself, but aren't these cute? These are on a Regia self-striping. I will put the colourway down below as I can't quite remember what it is. These were 64 stitches on 2.25 needles. I did a 2x2 rib along the top and an afterthought heel. This is the first time I've ever done an afterthought heel with a self-striping yarn. And I think I kind of messed up in terms of the colourway. I think I would have been better to pull out the yarn until I got to either a yellow or green. Because what I did was I just used the end that I had, which was red, which means I've got this double stripe of colour at the back of the heel. Now, I've spoken to Emrys about it, and it doesn't bother him at all. It bothers me a little bit. The good thing is that they match, so at least both of them have the same stripe on the back of the heel. But he is super, super happy with these. He hasn't worn them yet, which I'm quite glad, because it means that I can show them to you and they're lovely. He is going to wear them, he tells me, when we go to Bath next week for Valentine's Day. So they shall be his special Valentine's Day socks. And they are really soft and snuggly, particularly after I blocked them. They just became so much softer. So I'm a huge fan of this yarn, and I feel pretty smug because these I actually finished still in January, which, if you'll remember, I'd already completed 2 pairs of socks in January. So that means 3 pairs of socks in 1 month, which I know is nothing in comparison to people like Mina of the Knitting Expat, who I think knitted 35 pairs of socks in her sockathon in January. But for me, 3 pairs is pretty good going. So that's the only finished object that I have in terms of what's on my needles, but I do have some works in progress to share with you. So as we're on the topic of socks, let me show you some of the socks I've been working on. This is technically a partially finished object because I have completed 1 sock. This yarn is the yarn that I showed you last week. It's by Woolly Wonders, and it's her Rainbow Sparkle. And the heel and the toe I did in West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply, just in their milk bottle colourway, which is white, pretty much. I love these socks. I have been working on them for the Rainbow Along for the Suburban Stitcher, and the kind of rules for that were that you had to use rainbow yarn and it had to bring you joy. And these socks have brought me so much joy. They are a lot more kind of neon and over the top than the usual colourways that I would select for my work. This isn't really coming up as true as it should be on the camera, so I apologise for that, but it's really, really neon, brightly coloured. If you can see, each one of these, it looks almost self-striping, but each one of these, so for example, the green has yellow and green and then blue, and these stripes that look almost solid purple have orange, purple, red, more blue in them. And is it just me, or do these colours remind you of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? That's all I could think when I was working on these. Teenage Mutant Ninja socks. Because that's what they look like. And Emrys thought so too, so much to the point that he was like, I want those. I think you should give them to me. And I was like, no, because for one thing, you wouldn't wear sparkly socks, and for another, these are mine, so back off. But yeah, these are my Teenage Mutant Ninja socks, as I have named them. And I think I may double dip with the Twisted Stitches podcast, are currently doing a Rainbows and Unicorns Cal, which runs, I believe, until the end of March. So I think I will be entering those for that as well. So I have, like I said, completed the first sock, but fear not, there is no second sock syndrome going on here because I've already cast on the second one. So I have completed the cuff and I have just started doing the regular rounds. This is just a plain vanilla sock and this is my cake. You can see better here kind of the neon colours of the yarn. But I have loved how they've almost come up as a self-striping. It's very, very clever. I do think that they're going to look different. Yeah, you can see already that they're very different in terms of the way that the colours are coming out, but it doesn't bother me. I just think that they're fun. In terms of details for the pattern I'm using, it's not a pattern. I'm just 64 stitches again on 2.25 needles. I knit this original one on double points, but I felt like doing magic loop for the second one, so I'm magic looping. I did a slightly different cuff to the regular cuff that I do. I did a 3x1 rib, so 3 knit stitches, 1 purl. You can kind of see it better on the inside, I think, which I like. I do prefer my 1x1 twisted rib, I'm not gonna lie, but it was nice to try something different. I have a Fish Lips Kiss heel, which is my favourite heel to do at the moment. You should definitely try the pattern if you haven't. It's fantastic. And then a little rounded toe. My second work in progress is in my little spaceman bag that I made. It is my Hermione's Everyday Sock, which again I'm knitting with Regia, but I have got up to the heel flap, so I'm working on the heel right now, and I have finished the main leg, that's the word, leg. And like I said in my previous video, I'm not sure this yarn was the best to use for this pattern. I really don't mind too much. I've enjoyed working on these so much. It's lovely having two lots of socks on the needles that are so different. So this one being just plain vanilla and this one having texture and the heels being different and everything. It means that I can just kind of mix and match between the two, and it makes things so much more interesting. Again, I'm on 2.25 needles for these, double points. I'm using my Zings, which I love. And yeah, not really much that you can say about this. I did change the rib again to my favourite 1x1 twisted rib because I love it so much. It gives it such a nice finish, and I love how it feels in terms of the texture. So I have been working on these as well. So in terms of my knitting goals for 2016, I'm well on the way for this month because I've got half a pair of socks and about half of another sock knitted. So I may well be up to 2 or maybe even 3 more pairs of socks this month, which would be awesome. So my sock drawer is going to just be full of hand knit socks, which is lovely. I'm also going to be taking part in Kristin's box of socks Cal, Kristin of the Yarngasm podcast again. The only criteria, I believe, is that it's a minimum of 12 pairs of socks made in the year, and you have to put them in a lovely box. So I have a little box. You may recognise this from my Christmas gifts video. My mum filled this with yarn for me for Christmas, which was lovely, but it's a little bit small. Until I get a bigger box, this will be my box of socks. So far, I have 2 pairs in here. So I have my Kingfisher socks and my my pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows socks, which I didn't ever tell you that was the name of these socks in when I showed them to you originally, but that is their name, pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows. And if you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, search pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows in YouTube, but I warn you, the song will get stuck in your head forever. But that is what I named these after. So I have the 2 pairs of socks in there so far, so all curled up at the bottom, and I shall hopefully soon have some more socks to add in there. But like I said, I need a bigger box because this is not going to fit all the socks that I'm going to knit this year. Definitely not. I need a fancy sock box. So my last work in progress for what's on my needles is again in my lovely fondant fibre project bag. It is my Outlander Shawl, which I am knitting with the Outlander colourway by Voolenvine Yarns, and the pattern is the Duchess of Devonshire, which is by Kay Jones of the Carebears podcast. Now, the observant among you may notice that this does not seem to have grown very much since I shared it with you last week. There is a reason behind that, and that is for no fault other than my own. I have had to frog this shawl not once, not twice, but 3 times in the past week. It's literally just been due to silliness and incompetence on my part. When I started this shawl, I worked on it a lot at my parents' house on a Sunday because we tend to go over on a Sunday and have dinner and just hang out. Because it's the end of the week and we've usually had some lovely food and we watch Call the Midwife and we're all very comfy and cosy and a bit sleepy, it's not really the best time to be working on something that involves a little bit of brain power. Now, this pattern is beautifully written, it's clear, it's informative. If you read it properly, you won't make any mistakes. But the first 2 times that I needed to frog this was just because during that sleepy knitting in front of the television on a Sunday 2 times, I had an incorrect number of stitches on the needles, and I couldn't for the life of me work out what I had done wrong. At that point, I think I'd only done maybe the first repeat of the pattern, so I was probably around about here-ish. So I just frogged it back. I had to do that twice because that happened to me twice in one day, basically. But I thought, oh, it's not a problem. I'll just frog it back and start it again. I love the yarn. I love working on the shawl. So if anything, more work on it is just going to make me happy. So fine, happy days. So after frogging this twice, I managed to get it to the length that it is now. I got to the point where I had to repeat the pattern again, and I started reading through it, and I realised that on some of the rows when I was supposed to be purling, I had just been knitting, which had given the entire shawl a pattern that was not terrible, but not the pattern that it was supposed to be, and not the pattern that I wanted it to be. And I was absolutely devastated because I had done as much as I have done here. So as you can see, it is kind of squished on my needles, but it's a lot of stitches. And I just went, do you know what? I want this to be as it's supposed to be, so I'm going to have to frog it right back to the beginning, which is what I did. I frogged the poor shawl all the way back, and I had to start again. So it may not look like I've actually done all that much in a week, but believe me, this work, it's a lot because I've pretty much knit this shawl twice over already. Like I said, it's nothing wrong with the pattern, it's literally just my brain. To be honest, it's a testament to both the pattern and this yarn that having to rip it out and start again hasn't stopped me enjoying it, because every time I knit this, I enjoy the pattern so much and I love the yarn that even though I have done it twice over, it still makes me super, super happy. So hopefully this will be finished soon and I can wear it out. And now for something completely different. This is something I have been talking about for a little while, but it is time for me to reveal to you Netflix and Knit. So I filmed the next segment a couple of days ago on Wednesday. So we shall be going to a different location with a different looking me in a different outfit. So don't let that throw you. It's all perfectly fine and chilled. I'm so excited to finally share this with you. Here it is. My special secret project that I have been working on, which is Netflix and Knit. So enjoy. Film and television have always been a huge part of my life, but also influencing the way that I dress and the clothes that I like. When I watch something on the TV, whether I watch a film or a television program, I can't help but being fascinated by the costume that the characters are wearing. And I must admit, depending on how somebody dresses, often determines whether or not I actually really like that character or not, funnily enough. And for a really long time, I have been kind of collecting images from different films and TV programs that I really enjoy, that I want to recreate to use in my wardrobe. And that is why I have created this new segment, Netflix and Knit. The idea of Netflix and Knit is I share a film or a television program with you that I really love. I can tell you a little bit about it, why I love it so much. And in particular, I'm going to be focusing on the costumes of different characters, the outfits, and I shall be recreating one of these, maybe a whole outfit or just a particular item of clothing, using either knitting or sewing or whatever. I will then be recreating a look from that film or television program. So a tiny disclaimer, not all of the films or the TV programs that I'm talking about will be available on Netflix. I just really liked the name. So for my first ever Netflix and Knit, I wonder if you can guess what film I'm going to be using. The bright sparks among you, and to be honest, anyone who's seen pretty much any of my previous videos will know I am a huge fan of not just a film series, but a book series. How could I not have my first Netflix and Knit feature one of my favourite, not just books, not just films, but just favourite things in the world, and that is Harry Potter. Harry Potter to me is really, really special. I grew up with these books. I was pretty much the same age as Harry was when these books first came out. So every time a new book was released, I was very much the same age, and I queued at midnight for the release of these books locally. One of my best friends, one of my bridesmaids, actually introduced me to Harry Potter. I believe she actually has a first edition of both the first and the second book, so the Philosopher's Stone and the Chamber of Secrets, which is insane. Lizzie, you should totally sell those, you'd make a mint. But don't ever sell them, because those are just worth so much more than money. Obviously, in the US, you will know this as Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, but I shall be referring to it as the Philosopher's Stone, as that's what I'm used to, being a Brit. And it's the original, so it's the right one. The films, I must admit, I don't adore as much as the books themselves. Particularly the earlier ones can be a little bit ropey in terms of the acting of the younger performers. Don't even get me started on how they've edited some of the longer books. All that aside, I enjoy watching them. I enjoy a good binge watch marathon of Harry Potter. There's one item of clothing in particular that I wanted to recreate from Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Have you guessed? I think I know who that one's from, said Ron, going a bit pink and pointing to a very lumpy parcel. My mum. I told her you didn't expect any presents, and oh no, he groaned. She's made you a Weasley jumper. Harry tore open the parcel to find a thick hand-knitted sweater in emerald green. Every year she makes us a jumper, said Ron, unwrapping his own, and mine's always maroon. How could I not want to recreate a Weasley jumper? The Weasley jumpers are something that's mentioned kind of throughout the book series. Lots of different colours, both Harry and Ron. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone have these gorgeous, gorgeous jumpers, both of which have initials on them. And I've always loved the way that they look. With all that in mind, I am going to knit myself a Weasley jumper. The pattern that I am going to be using is actually a free pattern on Ravelry. It's called the Weasley sweater and it's by Alison, Hansel, and I of course will link everything down below. So do feel free to knit along with me if you fancy having a crack at your own Weasley jumper. I am taking inspiration from Ron more than Harry, I would say, and I'm using maroon. This is the yarn that I showed you in a previous video. It's Rowan and it's felted tweed in an Aran weight, and I'm also pairing it with some lovely blue-faced Leicester Aran yarn by Debbie Bliss in this golden colour for my initial. I'm obviously modifying this jumper so that the initial will be okay, so that it's perfectly personalised to me. Such squishy yarn. I'm really, really excited to use this. I have never made an Aran weight sweater before. I have only made sweaters in either DK weight, which is like this one that I'm wearing, or fingering weight. So using something that's a lot heavier is going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I do also have an additional purpose for this jumper other than just wanting to recreate something from the Harry Potter series that I love so much, and that is Emrys and I have tickets to go and see the Harry Potter play, which is going to be coming to London later this year. It's called Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and it takes place after the books and the film series have finished. I believe it's 19 years after the last book. It is 2 parts, you go and see 2 shows on one day. But yeah, I want my Weasley jumper to be finished in time for us to go and see Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Now, we could only get tickets for December. Tickets have sold out pretty much, and they are booking very, very far in advance, but we managed to get tickets for December of this year. So I've got a big window to get this finished. No pressure, literally at all, because I have such a long time to get it finished. But I would like, if I can, to also make one for Emrys. I don't know if that's too big a challenge to set myself, but I just think it would be really, really cute for us both to have Weasley jumpers, and I know that he would also love to have one. He has been hinting thus.
Do you want a Weasley jumper, Rolly? Do you want a Weasley jumper?
Let me know if you think I should make one for Rolly as well, or is that just too weird?
Yeah.
This is my first ever Netflix and knit from Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I shall be recreating a Weasley jumper. So watch this space. So, as you can tell, I did have a little bit of fun making that little video that came at the beginning and the end of that segment. I hope you can forgive my silliness. So yeah, this is Netflix and Knit, me recreating either a complete outfit or an individual clothing item from a film or a television programme that I absolutely love. This is a segment that I shall be repeating once a month. In the first podcast of each month, I shall be repeating this with a different film or a TV programme, and I am so excited to do it because this is combining 2 of my greatest loves into one thing. So if you haven't worked out, this is what makes me really, really happy. So without further ado, let me show you my progress so far. So bear in mind, I filmed the Netflix and Knit segment on Wednesday. That was when I cast on the back of the Weasley jumper. This is where I am now. Ta-da! I have finished the back of the Weasley jumper. It's huge. This pattern, let me say straight away, by Alison Hansel, is the easiest jumper sweater pattern I have ever seen. It is designed to be very oversized, very slouchy, very comfy, and I think to have more of a homegrown look to it rather than being too polished. So the shaping is pretty much a rectangle for the back, a rectangle for the front, and 2 larger rectangles for the sleeves. So as I said, I have finished the back piece, and if you can see here, there's no armhole shaping at all along the edge. There's a little bit of shoulder shaping, so we've cast off on each side, and I've got my central stitches left on my little stitch holder here to be joined with the front. But if you are thinking about knitting a sweater and you've never done so before, I would really recommend this as a beginner pattern, because I have done this. This took me no time at all. This is just stocking stitch in an Aran weight yarn, if you can see how big these stitches are. Oh, it's so snuggly, I love it. So it grows like nobody's business. It really, really does. And it's so thick and oh, it's lovely. I cannot wait for this to be finished so that I can wear it, because it's been so cold and miserable, and I know that this is going to be like a go-to jumper for me. The needle size is a US 8, which is 5mm. I'm using my higher sharps from my interchangeable needles set. The only thing that is intimidating me slightly, because as I said, this pattern is the easiest thing I've ever worked on, is The options for the initial on the front, the pattern gives you two. You can work in duplicate stitches or you can use intarsia. And I didn't want to do duplicate stitches. I wanted to knit the initial straight away into the jumper. It's just what I preferred to do. The only issue with that is using intarsia. Now, I love colour work. I'm fine doing stranded colour work, but intarsia kind of puts my teeth on edge. The last time I did it was a long time ago, but it didn't turn out too well. So I'm a little bit hesitant about using intarsia for the initial, but I figured I have more years experience, I have confidence, I'm using a nice thick yarn, so what could really go wrong? I'm really enjoying this project so far. It's knitting up so quickly that I really do think I might end up making one for Emrys. I feel like people may feel that this podcast is just turning into the Harry Potter knitting podcast, which, to be honest, I'm kind of okay with. I do love Harry Potter. And I'm not going to lie, I may have a couple more Harry Potter themed things coming up at the end of this episode as well. Maybe I should just go full out and do a Harry Potter knit along. Is that something that you guys would be interested in? Because I would love to do a Harry Potter knit along, some kind of Harry Potter themed knit along. But let me know, send me a message, leave a comment, get in touch with me on the Ravelry page, and just tell me, yeah, we want a Harry Potter knit along. Moving away momentarily from both knitting and Harry Potter, it's time for So What, my sewing segment of the podcast. So What this week has been entirely focused on one project, which is my Franken-dress, which, as you may recall, is me combining two patterns, the Joan Dress pattern by Sew Over It with the Madelaine Skirt by Victory Patterns. I am taking part this month in the Tiny Paper Foxes Make Along, which is Craft for 20, which basically means you spend 20 minutes each day working on a craft of your choice. And I have decided to use that time for my sewing and in particular my Franken-dress. I started the week by measuring up my pattern pieces and trying to work out what would be best in terms of combining these two patterns. And completely against character, as I've said previously, I don't usually make muslins for things, but the fabric that I'm using for this dress is really special to me. I've had it for a long time, and I, for the first time in a very long time, felt I have to do a muslin before I make the genuine dress, because I want this to fit perfectly and I don't want to waste this fabric by cutting into it and making something that I won't wear. So I used some scrap black fabric and I made a mock-up. And I tell you what, guys, it's a really, really good thing that I did, because when I tried this on, the waistline was resting pretty much just below my lowest rib. And that was about 1.5 inches, 2 inches above where my actual waist is. So my waist would have been kind of here as opposed to here. This is where my waist is. This is where the garment was kind of resting, which is a little bit concerning because it kind of makes me feel like I have an abnormally long torso. All kind of weirdness of my body shape aside, I'm so glad I made this mock-up, because it meant that I could then go back and adjust those pattern pieces to add that extra length into the bodice, so that I wouldn't have spent hours making this dress and then, you know, ended up with something that probably looked ridiculous as well as being incredibly uncomfortable to wear. So after making those pattern adjustments, I got the really exciting and fun task of actually cutting out my proper fabric. And this is what I have constructed so far. So this is the fabric. It's the Italian wool suiting kind of fabric, which is so lovely. I have sewn the front and back portions together. I have pressed all of the darts and the seams open, and I have set in the first sleeve. And yeah, that's what I've done so far. So hopefully by next week, by Valentine's Day, I will have this finished and I will be wearing this around Bath. So think good thoughts for me, guys, and let's hope that I don't get distracted by something else. I'm trying to be a monogamous sewist for at least the next week and not try and start anything new and just focus all my time on this. So before I go, I want to share my latest stash enhancements with you. So again, anyone who's following me in terms of 50 points for Gryffindor, I won't be saying what points I've got, what points I'm spending. That will come at the end of the month, but just rest assured I'm within my point scheme. I am not overspending at the moment, so trust me on that, and let's just enjoy all of the yarny goodness. First up, I have something really special that arrived this week and I'm so excited about it. This was actually a gift from Emrys, my lovely husband. I was having a bit of a rough time at work and he decided to treat me to something yarny to make me feel better because he's just lovely. I have been desperate for some Jinx yarn and I finally got some. This, guys, is Anime by Jinx Yarns. It's on her Glitz sock base, which is 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon and 5% stellina. And it's just ridiculous. It's beautiful. There are kind of aquas, pinks, purples, greens, orange, yellow, and I just think it's going to make the most beautiful pair of socks. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it yet. It's really special, so I think for the time being it's going to sit in my stash and just make me happy by being there. You guys in the States are so lucky that you have so many fantastic indie dyers that I absolutely covet and long for all of their products. I'm very, very jealous. Sometimes I wish I could live in the States just so I could get all the yarn. Funnily enough, the next couple of little acquisitions that I have are from UK-based indie yarn dyers, so yay UK! And remember when I said that there was going to be some Harry Potter themed goodies at the end of this podcast? This is that time. So first up, I have been following Tracy Arnold on Instagram for a little while now. She is an indie dyer and her company is called Nora George, and I recently saw that she had a huge selection of Harry Potter themed colourways in her shop. So she has pretty much all of the main characters in the Harry Potter. She's created colourways for them and they are beautiful. In the previous weeks, obviously, the death of Alan Rickman was announced and I was absolutely devastated, as I know so many people have been. So I was searching online for Harry Potter Snape-esque themed yarns. And at first I thought I will definitely be buying the Half-Blood Prince, which is by Molly of Homespun House, which I have been coveting for a very, very long time. But then I remembered that Tracy had some Harry Potter themed colourways. And she had one that was Snape. When I looked on her Instagram, she was making mini skeins of things. And as you know, I've started to collect mini skeins. I do have a Cozy Memories kit on order from Molly of a Homespun House. And I thought, I've just made this big purchase from Molly with this Cozy Memories kit. Wouldn't it be great if I got some more mini skeins from a more local to me dyer to add into that blanket, and wouldn't it be amazing if they were all Harry Potter themed? So I did. She had an update. She's very, very popular, so her yarn does tend to go quite quickly, but I do think that there are some of these colourways, maybe not the mini skeins, but some of these colourways are still in her shop and she does update regularly. But I got 2 of her Harry Potter mini skein sets, which are here, and they are gorgeous. Oh my goodness. So let me just show you. This one is set 4. These are all sock weight. And the colours that I have in here are her colourways, which are Harry, Ron, Hermione, which isn't coming up very well on here, but it's kind of a purpley plum kind of colour. It just looks a bit dark and dank on this, so I'm sorry about that. Hedwig, which is one of my favourites. It's beautiful. And at the back here, He Who Must Not Be Named. This is Voldemort. And again, this isn't really coming up true to colour. It's black with with tiny speckles of blue, and it's beautiful. So that was my first little set of 5. The other set that I got was set 1. And let me just make sure that I can remember all of these. I believe this is Professor McGonagall. This is Dumbledore. This one, this gorgeous one with all the greens, the blacks and the little tans and blues, is Snape, which I love, and I totally want to get the larger skein. Then we have this glitzy one here with all the kind of the browns and the greens. This is Professor Sprout. And at the back here, this brown one is Hagrid. I have not yet started on a Cozy Memories blanket because I wanted to wait until I get the kit from Molly, because I want to use that as the basis and then add around it. But I am so ready to start it. I'm so excited for it to arrive so that I can start it, because all of the pairs of socks that I've been knitting recently and the other projects that I've been working on, I have been saving the yarn and I have been creating my own little mini skeins, my own little mini cakes of yarn that are all ready and waiting to go into this Cozy Memories blanket. So I know it's going to be so special, and I can't wait to start it. I haven't yet taken part in any mini skein swaps or anything like that. I should totally look into that, because I just think it's so lovely, the thought of getting mini skeins from your friends and fellow knitters that they have seen and they've thought of you. You know, spreading the love. I love this community so much, particularly in the last couple of weeks with the amount of love and support that has been shown to me and this podcast. I genuinely have never felt so readily and warmly accepted by a community of people at any point in my life. It's just meant the world to me. A little bit schmaltzy there, but true. So my last stash enhancement is something that I have been dying to get hold of since before, I think probably November was when I first found out about this dyer and their yarn. And when I saw this colourway, I just had to have it. This yarn is by London House Yarns. This is one of their sock duos, and this colour is the 4 Founders. It's amazing. It's a sock duo because you knit one sock with each of these little skeins. And it also has little stitch markers attached to the ends of the yarn so you know where to start. How clever is that? They're self-striping, which means that if you use this duo, you should get a pair of identical socks by the way that you're knitting them, because they're perfectly matched. And this self-striping yarn is each of the houses of Hogwarts and their colours. So you have the Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff and Slytherin colours that come out one after the other as you knit the socks. And I just love these. I have a lot of sock yarn at the moment, so I don't know when I'm going to start on these, but these are so special. All the Harry Potter themed yarns for me, please, because I love them. Literally, this episode is turning into the I love Harry Potter and I love knitting and I love yarn podcast. On that note, if you know of any other Harry Potter themed yarn that is out there, give me a heads up, because I love that stuff. So before I finish up, I just want to share a couple of bits of news about the next couple of weeks. As I have said, next Sunday, Emrys and I are going to Bath. On Valentine's Day, we're having a lovely day trip to Bath. I'm going to go and visit some lovely yarn shops there. I'm super excited. But Sunday is usually my filming day for this podcast, so it may be going up a little later next week. Hopefully I will still be able to get it done for Monday, because I may be able to film in the morning and then upload in the afternoon, as I know that I will be off. But bear with me if things are a little bit later next week. Likewise, the week afterwards, I am going to unravel. I am so excited about this. I'm going to unravel in Falham, which is a big yarny woolly festival. I have never been previously. I've heard some amazing things from other podcasts, from groups on Ravelry. Everyone seems very excited about it. It's running from the 19th to the 21st of February, and I shall be going up with my lovely mum on the Sunday, so the 21st of February. So if you are also going to Unravel, please feel free to come up and say hello if you have watched my podcast. I would love to meet you. I intend to go and have a lovely time, and again, hopefully get my paws on some yummy yarny goodness, which means I better start finishing up some projects so I have some more points to spend. Otherwise I'm going to be so sad with no points to spend at both Bath and Unravel. But yeah, I think that's everything for this week, guys. So thank you so much for watching. If you have liked what you've seen, please like the video. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Come and join us in the Ravelry group. Come and find me on Instagram. And for now, happy sewing, happy knitting. And I will see you all next week. Bye. It's always a problem when you're doing a podcast and you want your tea and your tea goes cold halfway through, and it's really disappointing. Yummy tea.